Good evening. I'm Joan Hardy, the Glendale Burbank Unit Leader of the League of Women Voters of the Greater Los Angeles. I would like to welcome you to this forum. As we begin our evening of democracy in action, let us begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The League of Women Voters was started in 1920 after women won the right to vote. For 48 years, membership in the League has been also open to men. We are strong supporters of the election process, and the League joins the City of Glendale in encouraging voters to not only vote themselves, but to reach out to family members and friends to encourage them to vote as well. The questions you will be hearing tonight are questions we have received from the public. We hope the candidates will find these questions to be challenging, enabling you, the voters, to make an informed decision. Tonight's candidate forum rules call for adherence to the terms of civil discourse by both the candidates and the public. The hallmark of democracy is the willingness of all members of our community to treat each other with courtesy and respect, not just the people that we agree with. It is in that spirit that we are here this evening to engage in a vital part of our democratic process, a civilized discussion of the important issues confronting our communities. So I want to thank you all, candidates, for being here tonight, and for the audience as well. The League also thanks the City of Glendale for once again providing voters with the opportunity to view the forum both in person here tonight and via rebroadcast. We are particularly grateful for the assistance of the Glendale Public Information Office, City Clerk, and Glendale TV in conducting these forums. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening's forum, Rita Zwern. Rita is a longtime League member with much experience in moderating forums. We're grateful to Rita and the many hours that she dedicates to the League.
Thank you, Joan. Good evening and welcome. This forum will be broadcast this evening and then at various times until the election date on Glendale TV and YouTube channel of the City of Glendale. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the prior written permission of the League of Women Voters and the City of Glendale. No digital or other forms of photography or recording are permitted in these chambers during the forum. We would request that the audience turn off all cell phones and pagers and that they refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters are disruptive during another candidate's remarks, the other candidate will be given additional time to compensate for the interruption. Additionally, attacks of a personal nature, including private matters, having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of the office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his or her remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him of the rule will be taken from his or her own speaking time. Both candidates in the Glendale City Clerk election were invited to participate in this evening's forum. I'd like to begin by introducing the candidates in ballot order. Mr. Greg Krikorian and Dr. Susie Abajian. There will be a total of 6 questions during the forum. The first question will be addressed to candidate number 1, who will have 2 minutes to respond. Candidate 2 will then have 1 minute to respond to the same question. The second question will be first addressed to candidate number 2, who will have 2 minutes to respond, followed by a 1-minute response by candidate number 1. The same process will be followed for the next 4 questions. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 2 minutes each for a closing statement. During the question responses and closing statements, our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute, 30 seconds, and then a stop sign when they are out of time. We will now begin with the first question. The first question will be directed first to Mr. Krikorian. What do you believe to be the most important function or service of the city clerk's office, and why? Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. That is the most critical question we could be asked today. What the most critical position for the city clerk's office is to connect with the community that he or she lives and works in. And the city clerk's office is an integral gateway to City Hall. Having that connection to city residents, to all residents, is an important task of the city clerk's office in many ways. The city clerk dates back to almost 1,000 years ago, the history of the city clerk's office. And it's an important part of the city infrastructure communicating in many ways. The city clerk provides transparency, access to City Hall. Having knowledge of the residents from north to south Glendale is critical. Having personal relationships with the residents and neighborhoods is important to all in the city of Glendale. What I bring to the city and what I'm going to bring when I become city clerk is that trust and values I have in the city. That happened built upon a foundation that my father built upon me growing up in Connecticut of one of 8 children. When I moved here from Connecticut in 1990, it developed a program of understanding a foundation, what our city's like. And that's when I hit the ground running, getting involved in all aspects of the community, from the Seroptimus down to the Kiwanis Club of Glendale, working with the homeowner associations. And then what's important is to have and have-nots. What Krikorian's going to bring is the love for Glendale, open access, and transparency to City Hall. The city clerk is important because it protects the city in many ways. Record keeping, keep in focus what you're going to bring and deliver to the city residents. And what's most important here is having the trust and having a commitment to all residents. And one thing I am committed to is being open to all residents of all walks of life that live in Glendale to serve all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bajian, your 1-minute response, please.
The most essential function of the city clerk is to ensure transparency in city government. The city clerk oversees municipal elections, public records requests, updating the municipal code, managing city records, posting agendas for city council meetings, and minutes for city council meetings, and also commissions and any city-related function. So I believe that it requires a person who is able to maintain the transparency and access to all sectors of our population, to be able to provide communication in different languages, to connect with different constituents in our city, and to ensure that we're following the municipal code, the state laws, and the federal laws. And that would be the most important function of the city clerk.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Dr. Abajian. The Brown Act requires local government business to be conducted at open and public meetings, except in certain limited situations. What are the responsibilities of the city clerk in ensuring that the city meets these requirements, and what steps, if any, would you take to strengthen these processes? Dr. Bajian, your 2-minute response, please.
As a former elected official, as a school board member, I am very familiar with the Brown Act, and I have actually gone to the California School Board Association conference and have been educated on different aspects of the Brown Act. And I put the Brown Act into practice as the school board president. The Brown Act ensures that we comply with fair political practices, so it's ensuring that we post agendas in a timely manner so that the public has access to the agendas and the public knows when the board is meeting, or in this case, the city council is meeting, and ensure that the council members aren't meeting without the public knowledge, that they're not making decisions behind closed doors. So it is critical that the governmental entities abide by the Brown Act, the California Brown Act, to ensure transparency in decision-making and ensure that our public knows the business that is taking place and the business is done in an open manner so that the public can have input and understand the process that the city council goes through to come to decisions, whether it's updating the municipal code or making decisions in terms of contracts with different city contractors. So it's essential that that we conduct business in an open and transparent fashion, and the city clerk's responsibility is to ensure that we're abiding by those laws, that the city government is conducted in that fair and transparent manner.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your 1-minute response,
Can you repeat it again, please? Repeat the question,
Certainly.
restate the question.
The Brown Act requires local government business to be conducted at open and public meetings, except in certain limited situations. What are the responsibilities of the city clerk in ensuring that the city meets these requirements? And what steps, if any, would you take to strengthen these processes?
Thank
Mr.
you. And
Krikorian,
that's
your
what's
1-minute
really,
response.
that's what's really important. The Brown Act and transparency is critical. But taking a step forward of providing professional development, training for not only for our city council members, but for our commissioners. Develop programs to bring them up to date, dealing with Brown Act situations. As we change in times, technology is changing. Even the Board of Education, past 21 years I've served, our Brown Act has mitigated through the whole COVID challenges that we had. So what's critical is when I become city clerk and the voters vote for me, they'll understand that I'll be bringing an atmosphere to protect our city council members, our commissioners, anyone that's responsible for the Brown Act itself. And we develop these training sessions and ongoing, at least yearly, and having opportunities, refresher courses, and to bring, because sometimes you need that refresher. And what a city clerk needs to do, and he or she does, is providing support for our city hall in all aspects. Transparency goes without question, but providing support for our electeds to be aware of the Brown Act.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question will be directed first to Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you.
Average voter turnout in Glendale municipal elections from 2011 to 2017 was less than 23%. If elected, what steps would you take to encourage greater voter participation in municipal elections? Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
That's been the backbone my whole life growing up in Connecticut. My father teaching me the values, how important it is to vote, and it's a God-given right that we have as American citizens to use that vote. And it's essential. And I've lived by that example in 21 years in the Board of Education, giving our students the opportunity of civic responsibility, understanding the aspect of how important it is your vote counts. Every vote makes a difference. And it's working with the different groups and organizations throughout our community. We have a wealth of organizations from Seroptimists to Kiwanis groups to Rotarians and homeowner associations and community ethnic groups, the Glendale Latino Association, FabBag, and communicating with diverse populations. Sometimes diverse organizations are scared to vote. There's that unfair knowledge of having that concern. It's breaking those barriers. And one thing that Krikorian brings and my background brings is that welcoming approach and bringing that aspect to City Hall and how you embark. And it's the toughest thing that we challenge with, that there's ballots out there. We need people to exercise their God-given right to vote. And what's important is developing programs. One thing I am committed to do is Artie Kosaki, and going back to Doris Tweet, Eileen Boyle, to Rita Buchanan, and Adam, what they've done is build upon the good work they've done of building this up. And my experience worked with the schools and high school clubs, the local colleges, the political clubs, get them more involved in City Hall. Some of the plans I have is to develop intern programs where they can help work in this access. The more you educate the youth and you build that responsibility where it is, I think that's critical. And the other thing I'd like to do is get the veterans more involved. The veterans, our vote makes a big difference for veterans, disabled, and our seniors. Every vote counts. And what I'm excited about this position is a nonpartisan seat. So it's important that everyone votes. And that's my belief, that building that structure, someday we should set our own assessment to set goals of where we grow in our vote count. And that's one of my goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bachian, your 1-minute response, please.
It's a shame that we have over 100,000 registered voters in Glendale, and only 20% of them turn out to vote in any given election. I know that the numbers were a little bit higher during the last presidential elections, but still, I think that shows a disengagement with voters and a disinterest in voting for our city officials. So I think it's really important to reach out to the community and have educational programs to enable them to understand why it is important to take part in elections, how to meet candidates, how to engage in the whole electoral process. And this has to be done in conjunction with community groups and done in a linguistically and culturally responsive way, because otherwise we are not going to be able to engage different segments of our disenfranchised population. So I think it's really critical that we reach to them in culturally and linguistically responsive ways and work with different community orgs to engage them.
The next question will be directed first to Dr. Bajian. The budget for the city clerk's office for 2021-22 is a little over $1 million, 3/4 of which is for salaries and benefits. Do you feel this is sufficient to carry out the functions of the department? And if not, which functions or services do you believe should receive increased funding? Dr. Bajian, your 2-minute response, please.
I think all city operations operate on a shoestring budget. Unfortunately, that's the reality of not just our city, but a lot of cities across California. And that's a challenge. And I know that the majority of the monies goes to staff. So I think that it's really important to prioritize the time that the staff focus on in terms of different functions. And it's important to allocate funds to be able to upgrade the platform in which we communicate our city functions and services and records to our residents, make it more ADA and Section 508 compliant, and also make it available to our linguistically diverse population. I think those are really critical things for the office of the city clerk and for our city to be able to have that transparency, not just with a certain sector of our population, but really with everyone in our city. And I think that invariably will impact voter engagement and will enable more participation in our city government. So I think it's critical to look at the budget, prioritize the monies that we could use on different things aside from staff salaries, and also looking at how the staff time is spent, and prioritizing the things that matter to our community and our city.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, thank you. At the end of the day, it's our taxpayers' dollars, and it's looking at best spending those dollars. It's one of my strengths is budget and financial engagement. Throughout my time running my own small business, you improvise and you develop programs. But the first thing is dealing with the city clerk's office, is working with the present assistant clerk's office with Adam and developing a plan and seeing where there's gaps, meeting with the city manager and the city attorney. The key thing here is looking at it, and you don't want to look at the cup half full and how you look at it half empty. What I will bring is look at an assessment. What programs are working? Where's cost-effective basis to save the city? The more that I could bring my leadership to the city clerk's office, along with the team that's there, we'll be able to expand opportunities and do less for more sometimes. You look what we can do to provide for our residents. If we have to spend more money to provide more services for our residents at Glendale, so be it. But it needs to be assessed. So what I want to do is we move some of our projects out of there, our film projects, film permitting moved out. Now we're contracted that out. How can we develop more revenue for our city? And that's what I'll bring.
The next question will be directed first to Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you.
How do you believe that your current or previous experience prepares you for the position of city clerk? Mr. Krikorian, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, it's part where I broached in the very beginning. When I first moved here and got married in 1990, and my pop brought me here and I was 26 years old, I hit the ground running, being involved in our community in so many aspects. I have a passion, love Glendale. And it's been just a family that, my father went to, my pop passed away here, and my mom passed away, and I've raised 5 of my children here. And we look what the electoral system's about. It's about giving to our community. And it's one thing I look at what Glendale has to offer me is I want to give back. I have a wealth of experience running my own business, being elected 5 times to the Glendale Board of Education. Yes, the past couple of years were difficult during COVID and pandemic. Tough decisions we had to make. But I have worked all along, going through programs, organizational leadership master's degree at Woodbury University, executive MBA problem solving, crisis management at UCLA, Central Connecticut State University, business administration. I was the president of the Valley Economic Alliance for a year and a half, running that organization, which was in financial challenges, and that was formed because of the Northridge earthquake. I partnered with civic, college, community organizations, school districts to help rebuild that from Calabasas to Glendale. One of the strengths that I'll bring is my knowledge only with the present staff. My relationships with existing city employees is strong, long-lasting, that I'll be able to have those doors and communications work, hit the ground running. I am so excited about this opportunity. I'm so excited what I'm going to bring to the city of Glendale. This is one of the steps of my passion I have for my next chapter in life that I've given to the city in many ways. And what I'm most excited about is I'm the only candidate just completed the first steps for clerk training. I enrolled in California Clerks Association training this past winter. I've taken over a couple months of class already to train to get the nuts and bolts. There's so much more I need to learn, and I'm eager to do this, but I can't do it without your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bajian, your 1-minute response, please.
The city clerk's office is a full-time position. Being the city clerk requires knowledge and experience working with a team of staff, managing staff, organization and compliance with the law, interfacing with the public, and those are all things that I have done in my various positions. I have extensive experience in educational administration. I have experience as an educator in K through 12 and higher education. I have a PhD in education. And I have worked in this capacity managing a team of staff at the Orange County Department of Education. I was the compliance officer for their federal programs, and I understand what it takes to manage staff and what it takes to have organizational compliance with the law and be responsible, be the compliance officer for that. So those are all skills that matter in this particular position. And for that reason, I am the most qualified candidate for this position.
Thank you. The last question will be directed first to Dr. Abajian. What has inspired you to run for the office of city clerk? And Dr. Abajian, your 2-minute response, please.
I am running for the position of city clerk because I truly care about our city. This is my hometown. I grew up here, and I care that our city becomes a place that's better for my child and for all future generations. And I feel that our city deserves a qualified candidate, a candidate who will be able to do this job, who has the skills, who has the training, who has the disposition to be able to take on this position as city clerk and be able to manage the city clerk's office, to work collaboratively with the staff, and be able to put processes there that will make our city clerk's office function better and become more accessible to the public and to our voters. And I feel that I'm the right candidate for that. I did not want my opponent to run unopposed because it's really important for our democracy to have different individuals running for office and give our electorate options on who to vote for. And I really, truly believe in my heart that I'm the most qualified candidate for this position. I have the skills. I have extensive experience in records management. I also am a small business owner. I also have founded my own nonprofit. I've been on the school board. I've been a school board clerk. I've been a school board president. So I have all of those experiences plus more. And I think I bring all of that to serve my city. And that's why I believe that I'm the most qualified candidate to take on this position and do the work of Glendale City Clerk.
Thank you. Mr. Krikorian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. And the question was what inspired me to run for city clerk, correct? That's what you asked?
Yes.
Okay, what inspired me is, I said it before, is my love and passion for our country, my love and passion for the city of Glendale. I've been consistently living here for over 32 years, and it's been part of my family. We've been here consistently in this community, And it's part of the fabric that which I love, even just going up to Montrose and walking throughout the community. There's so many people and new neighbors I've met, and it's given back. And what it is what inspired me most of all, it gives me an opportunity of all the things I've gained, everything that Glendale has given me and my 5 children and my father and our entire family in Glendale, is it's time for me to give back. The qualifications are all there. I'm just so energized for this opportunity and what I'm going to bring to City Hall and to the City Clerk's office. And it shows my commitment to enrolling to training classes and going through the clerk training program. My knowledge, thank you. Thank you.
The candidates will now have 2 minutes each for their closing statements. Mr. Krikorian, your closing statement, please.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank the Women's League for pulling this together. I think it's important. It's something I embarked back on in 1990 when my father and I launched Business Life. We were the first organization to celebrate women throughout the region. We honor women achievers for the past 32 years. And it's been something I've been proud about, working with Seroptimus International, Zonta, ABWA, BPW, Lynx, the Deltas, so many groups. And this has been a lifelong passion of my love for our country. I know my grandparents, all 4 of them, were orphans from the Armenian Genocide in 1915. My family, my father was born here in Hartford, Connecticut. My mother was born in Cleveland, Ohio. I know the sacrifices my family did. My family fought in World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. I'm blessed to be American. These is built upon a foundation of love for our country, love for our city. My father came here, and we built a community here and raising all 5 of my children in Glendale. My youngest is 21, my twins are 30. And it's amazing what has happened to my family and this community itself. This is a unique opportunity. This is an important point in our Glendale City elections. You're going to elect somebody who is a hometown resident of this community, has been committed to here for 32 years. That means something. And also, I am committed to serving everybody. It's a nonpartisan seat. And what I'm committed to is my involvement in Jewel City Little League down to what I'm doing in the Board of Education. I'm asking for you to vote, our residents to look at this, not only look at this forum, visit our website at Greg 2022. I know where my passion is and my love for this city. You have a critical vote in this election. This election, the city clerk will be managing the November elections. I'm committed to be fair and transparent for all residents, with no matter what your party from. We're all one people in this country.
Thank you.
God bless you, and vote for Greg Krikorian.
Thank you. Dr. Vajian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you again for the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. My name is Dr. Susie Bajian, and I'm running for Glendale City Clerk because I care deeply about Glendale, my hometown. And I believe that our city deserves a qualified candidate who is passionate about transparency, access, and voter empowerment. Glendale is the city where I was raised. I'm a graduate of Glendale High School, and it is the city where I have chosen to raise my family. As a working mother and an educator of 24 years, I understand the need for our residents to have easy access to information about city services, records, and processes. As an experienced educational administrator and small business owner, I have extensive knowledge in records and staff management, interfacing with the public, and ensuring organizational compliance with the law. As a former school board member, school board clerk, and school board president, I have a deep understanding of the Brown Act, the Public Records Act, and fair political practices within governmental entities. When elected, I will ensure transparency through good information governance and open data initiatives. I will ensure access by modernizing our city platform for sharing city records, processes, and programs, and making it ADA and Section 508 compliant. I will empower voters through community education and outreach in culturally and linguistically responsive ways. Currently, we have 7 elected officials in our city government. However, only one of these 7 is a woman. We need highly qualified women at the table, making decisions and leading our community. I'm honored to have the endorsement of the Glendale Teachers Association, the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, National Women's Political Caucus, Councilmember Dan Brotman, City Treasurer Rafi Manukian, and many others. I hope I also have gained your support to date. To find out more about my campaign, please visit my website. It's www.susiebajian.com. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you very much. That concludes our city clerk candidate forum. We're grateful to the staff of Glendale TV and Brian Halloran for their valuable support in making this event possible. We'd like to thank the candidates for participating in this forum. A vital part of our democratic process is the willingness of individuals to offer their services to represent our community, and we thank all of the candidates for running in this election. The League of Women Voters of Glendale, Burbank, and Greater Los Angeles would also like to thank both our audience in attendance and those of you at home. Please be sure to vote at a voter center or mail in or drop off your ballot so that it's postmarked or received by June 7th. Thank you and good night. Okay.
Glendale Municipal elections. My name is Joan Hardy, the Glendale Burbank Unit Leader of the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles. The League thanks the City of Glendale for once again providing voters with the opportunity to view the forum both in person here tonight and via rebroadcast. We are particularly grateful to the assistance of the Glendale Public Information Office, the City Clerk, as well as Glendale TV in conducting these forums. I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening's forum, Rita Zwern. Rita is a longtime League member with much experience in moderating forums. We are grateful to Rita and the many hours she dedicates to the League.
Thank you, Joan. Good evening and welcome. This forum will be broadcast this evening and then at various times until the election date on Glendale TV and the YouTube channel of the City of Glendale. No reproduction or rebroadcast of this forum may be made without the prior written permission of the League of Women Voters and the City of Glendale. No digital or other forms of photography or recording are permitted in these chambers during the forum. We would request that the audience turn off all cell phones and pagers and that they refrain from applauding or otherwise disrupting the forum. If a candidate's supporters are disruptive during another candidate's remarks, the other candidate will be given additional time to compensate for the interruption. Additionally, attacks of a personal nature, including private matters having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of the office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his or her remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him or her of the rule will be taken from his or her own speaking time. All the candidates in the Glendale City Council election were invited to participate in this evening's forum. I'd like to begin by introducing the candidates in ballot order. Jordan Henry, Anita Quiñones Gabrielian, Karen Kwok, Councilman Dan Brotman, Ellen Asatrian, Councilman Vrej Agajanian, Councilman Ara Najarian, and Isabel Valencia Tavanyan. There will be a total of 10 questions during the forum. The initial question will be addressed to all of the candidates at the forum, beginning with candidate number 1. Although this is not our standard process, in light of the importance of this question, and to ensure that all the candidates have sufficient time to consider their response, we have previously provided this question to all of the candidates. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to respond to the question. For the purpose of responding to the next 8 questions, the candidates will be divided into groups of 4. The first candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond to question 1, followed by responses of 1 minute each for candidates 2, 3, and 4. Then candidate 5 will be given 2 minutes to respond to question 2, followed by responses of 1 minute each for candidates 6, 7, and 8, and so on for the remaining 6 questions. This will give each candidate the opportunity to address 1 question for 2 minutes and 3 questions for 1 minute each. None of these questions have previously been given to any of the candidates prior to the forum. Question 10 will be addressed to all 8 candidates in reverse ballot order. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 2 minutes each for a closing statement. During question responses and closing statements, our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute, 30 seconds, and then a stop sign when they are out of time. We will now begin with the first question. Again, this first question is addressed to all of the candidates. One of the most significant issues facing the City Council at this moment is what the city should do to meet its energy needs in the near term and coming decade. At the center of the current controversy is whether new fossil fuel combustion equipment should be installed at the Grayson Power Plant, or whether, in keeping with the state's goal of reducing carbon pollution to 1990 levels by 2030, more aggressive action should be taken to move the city to 100% renewable energy sources by 2030 or 2035. And the question is, where do you stand on this issue and why? Mr. Jordan, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Having earned my master's in landscape architecture from Cal Poly Pomona, I am deeply concerned about changes to our environment and to our city as the climate warms. That said, the council must provide basic city services to the city of Glendale, and that includes the most vulnerable citizens within our city. The Grayson Power Plant repowering project, in my opinion, is absolutely necessary in order to establish that basic service for the city. If we look at, we talked about, you mentioned natural gas generators. There are 5 proposed there. Those generators do not have to be run all the time. They would only be used during peak service. Those generators also could be operational at 25% with hydrogen immediately. By 2035, that could be 100%. Granted, some fossil fuels would still need to be used in order to run that, but this is one of the most progressive and efficient proposals for any city municipality. If we do not go through with this, unfortunately, the growing use of electric cars, electrification for appliances, growing city will put undue stress on the city grid from GWP. We will not be able to meet demands. Utility rates will increase, and as I said before, vulnerable people, poor people, elderly people will all suffer as those rates increase. Again, I'm deeply concerned about the environment. I drive an electric car. I've owned solar panels. This is not an either or. This is simply necessary to provide basic city services to the city of Glendale. Thank you.
Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. I believe that at this important time in history, we are at the nexus of having to make very important and very difficult decisions. At the current time, our climate action plan isn't fully expanded, and that brings me to why I'm actually running. There were no long-term plans, and the business plan that our Los Angeles Water and Power Department was working on was a very old one. So we are facing a situation where we need to make an immediate response. We are very thankful, I'm very thankful that we have an additional few months to make sure that we make the right decision going forward. And it is one that we have to balance between reliability and affordability for all of Glendale and respect for our climate crises. So I believe that we have to continue to invest in solar distributed energy. We have to electrify at every opportunity. Everyone must do their share in order to make sure that we decrease our requirements from our own electric plant. We have to negotiate with LADWP to see what they can do for us Are we in a position to depend on what they can do for us until we get to 100% renewable energy sources by 2035? So we must make sure that we optimize whether we need 5 or 3 engines or none at all, or grow our battery requirement, but we have to make hard choices.
Thank you. Ms. Kwok, your 2-minute response, please.
Hi, I am on record. Sorry, is my mic working? Yes.
Should be.
Hi, I am on record from 5 years ago, since 2017, calling for the city to maximize the use of clean energies like solar before resorting to a minimal amount of natural gas. Very specifically, I would like to see a way to get solar panels on the roof of my rental, because renters are 67% of the population, and we're not going to solve the energy issues of the city without input from the majority of the population. And it's a little disappointing that 5 years later, we've made almost zero progress toward that goal. Okay, back in 2017, 2018, I was also on the original steering committee of the Glendale Environmental Coalition, the GEC, which is how I met Mr. Brotman here. And I affectionately call them the Dan Brotman Fan Club. Okay, they worked very hard to push the city to reduce their original 262 megawatt plan down to 93. This was a significant achievement, one that they should be proud of. However, what I'm hearing now is that this solution is considered inadequate, and sometimes lost in the heated rhetoric is that 93 megawatts more or less of natural gas in itself are not going to make or break the climate crisis, in much the same way that 1,000 new units of housing are not going to make or break the housing crisis. Now, as a person who lives on a small income, I rarely ever get exactly what I want. Most of the time, I need to make the best of what is available in my price range when I need it. This is the case with Grayson. No, the ideal solutions I'd like to see are not available right now, but we are up against a deadline, and the longer we delay making a decision on it, the longer those actual outdated equipment pieces from the 1940s are churning pollution into our air. There are many different ways we can address the climate crisis in addition to Grayson, including getting cars off the road, whether it's by walking or taking public transit as I do, or by riding bikes, as Councilmember Brotman and several other people do, or we can also pay attention to other issues. Thank you.
Mr. Brotman, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Well, this is the issue which brought me to council, and I think everyone knows that I started 5 years ago fighting the original 260 megawatt project. I've spent 5 years evaluating and analyzing this problem. I've spoken to many experts in utility and clean energy issues around the state, so I think I know a thing or two about this. 5 years ago, GWP swore up and down that we needed 260 megawatts. I pushed back, and after relooking at it, lo and behold, they found that we really don't need 260 megawatts. Now they're saying we need 93. So it's clear that the utility guys don't always have all the answers, especially when the technology is changing so fast. So now we're presented with a proposal to invest in 93 megawatts of gas. I still think there's a lot of opportunity to maximize clean energy, so I'm not prepared to accept that proposal until I see GWP really step up, really dig in, and do all the things that they can do. Now, we could absolutely run our entire grid without gas. It's just a matter of time. It takes time to build out all the solar and all the battery and to do all the energy efficiency and all the demand response that would be needed to get us there. It's a timing issue. How much can we do and how fast can we do it? And what I want to see is I want to see GWP really act in good faith, maximize the amount of clean energy. And if we find that we need some backup generation, I've been on record all along saying that I would support that. But I'm not ready to support it now until I see a real serious effort to do the best that we can do to avoid more fossil fuels in Glendale.
Thank you. Ms. Asatrian, your 2-minute response, please.
I'm against adding additional fossil fuel equipment. I think that proposal is both environmentally unfriendly and fiscally irresponsible to invest $260 million of our taxpayer money into outdated equipment. when we also have to invest in clean energy by the 2045 deadline that the state has set is just absolutely unacceptable to me. I think we have an opportunity here to be a model city for other cities to follow versus being one of the last cities to invest in fossil fuel equipment. I'm one of the only non-incumbents that's actually spoken out against this when this was coming up at the council, along with the Shoal Canyon power plant, which this council approved $50 million for, that would only get us 6 to 7 years of energy on top of a landfill instead of working towards cleaning up that landfill.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, your 2-minute response, please.
When I got elected in 2017, very first time I was sitting there, when I heard 262 megawatt of gas, that was the plan, I said that's not acceptable. As a professional engineer licensed in California, at the time, Mr. Steve Zern was GWP director. And they discussed with me for almost a year. So by 2018, they came from 262, they reduced it. Of course, Mr. Young, who is the director of GWP now, a few months ago, he said that this is what I'm telling you is on the record, which happened. They reduced it. My plan was to reduce it to 100 megawatt from the day one. They came back and, of course, surprised me. They said, we have a plan with 93 megawatt of gas. The rest of it will be renewable energy. However, what we have now, we directed GWP move forward with Unit 9 separation, Tesla Mega Pack 75 megawatt, prepare for but delay work on Wärtsilä engines to December, add additional 50 megawatt of distributed energy resources, study hydrogen and long duration storage, virtual power plant on residential rooftops, and already we contracted 10 megawatt Franklin demand response clean energy, 8.9 megawatt Wilden energy efficiency program. So as you see, we did a major, we went forward, we're bringing clean energy to the city of Glendale. Thank you.
Mr. Najarian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you, Ms. Zwern. I was working on bringing clean energy to Glendale well before it became the popular movement that it is today. I've directed the city to obtain geothermal, wind, hydroelectric, and solar energy for the past 17 years. While mayor in 2019, I was able to persuade Mayor Garcetti of LA to let Glendale share in the Eland solar power project for 25 megawatts. I worked to purchase a battery energy storage system at the Grandview Power Station in 2016. Again, as mayor in 2020, I signed agreements to purchase 15 megawatts of geothermal-based electricity from 2 geothermal plants. That's some of the reasons that I've been endorsed now and in every one of my elections by the Sierra Club and the LA League of Conservation Voters. I was the swing vote on council March 1st to pause the purchase of the natural gas power generators to make sure that we've given ourselves every chance to go 100% renewable energy. Dan Brotman, my colleague, and I have met with the leadership at LADWP to see if we can get power from them. Our city has been negotiating with a distributed energy resource company for rooftop solar. If we can locate, purchase, and transmit reliable, renewable energy to the city, then we will have no need to buy the natural gas generators. But we don't have much time. The end of the year is our absolute deadline because of permitting laws. And so it's clear the entire state faces a potential energy crisis. That's why the governor is looking at extending the life of the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant and adding gas generator units. If we can't get the renewable energy we have to, then I will not accept brownouts or blackouts for this city.
Thank you. Mrs. Valencia Tavanyan, your 2-minute response, please.
Hi, this question is about energy needs in the next 10 years. Like they said, everything is on the record. why they didn't take action. That's why I'm running, because I want to go and find out the root of the problems. Why is not solution? It's all, too many talking, but no solutions, no results. I see that one of the main problems, like he mentioned it was the humongous buildings that we built, and we didn't know that they're gonna take a lot of energy for our regular citizens that we live in Glendale in a very limited budget. Like Karen said, it's a very good idea to start to go with what we have. What we have is all buildings that we need to remodeling, the basics, the more important part of the remodeling, and then put the solar panels in the people, 65% of the tenants that we are majority in this city. And not to start to give tax credits for the people that they have their houses in different areas, and they are just asking and claim we need this change. Of course we need this change. This requirement state did in 2018 when we didn't have any idea about the pandemic is gonna hit us. And we need to be very responsible. We're gonna start to do something different. Of course it's important, but it's not the right time. Thank you.
Thank you. This question is directed first to Mr. Jordan. California has a solar rooftop penetration rate of about 10%, but Glendale is about 2%. If Glendale achieved a 10% penetration rate, the need for gas equipment at the Grayson Power Plant would be dramatically reduced or even eliminated. What steps or incentives could be taken to increase solar power installations in Glendale? Mr. Jordan, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't see a problem with incentivizing distributed energy production like solar. And the problem is also is how do we actually hold that power? Do we put it back into the grid? There is a certain energy loss that comes from transporting power over a certain distance through energy lines, through power lines. So if you're going to incentivize solar panels on homes or on apartment buildings for tenants, you also need to likely incentivize battery power production, backup power. Now, these systems, unfortunately, go offline, and there is significant amounts of maintenance involved. Potable water is absolutely necessary to clean solar panels, and people should be very aware that if solar panels are not cleaned regularly in an arid climate such as Southern California, it is very regular. If they're not cleaned, you will have systemic failure of these systems. So if a bird defecates on a solar panel, which happens every day, and that is not cleaned, that will create intense heat in that solar cell, and it will fail if it's not cleaned. So the city needs to also incentivize water usage, utility rate, lesser utility rates to make sure that people can actually maintain these systems. Also with batteries, I drive an electric car, like I said. I've only owned it for about 2 years, and I've lost 12% of total capacity on that car. It's a Tesla, so there's the Tesla Megapack right there, the exact same battery technology. We have to make sure that we have a plan in place to help people when these systems do go offline, which they will. Thank you.
Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I am a firm believer in incentivizing the installation of additional solar panels on new developments, on redevelopments, on residential homes. I've had solar panels on my home for over 8 years now, and I didn't get any incentives from the city because they were only available on a lottery type basis. So you might have them, you might not have them. I think it has to be clearly understood that instead of lottery, it's a definite incentive that either new development or redevelopment or residential homes will receive from the city. We can look for funding. There is federal funding for this that will help the city fund these incentives.
Thank you. Ms. Kwok, your 1-minute response, please.
As I mentioned in my response to your last question, I would love to see a way to get solar panels on the roofs of rentals. Now, this is a more complicated matter because the upfront costs will be covered by the landlord, but the benefits over the long run will be felt mainly by the tenant. Now, this is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to create a tenant-landlord committee, because we need input from both sides to see exactly what kind of incentives we need to offer in order to incentivize landlords to install the solar panels upfront. Because, for example, my landlord decides what kind of stove I'm going to get, whether it's electric or gas. I have no say in the matter, and he's more concerned with the upfront costs. I'm more concerned with the maintenance over the long run. But that's why we need to find a right combination, like what would landlords like to see? And how many tenants are interested in participating in this type of program? Surely we can find a way to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brotman, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. We have the potential for a lot more solar in Glendale, but it's not really about incentives. Solar pays for itself. The issue is that we make it difficult for people to do certain things. For instance, if you want to put solar on your rooftop and you want to overproduce, you want to produce more solar than you actually use yourself and sell it back to the utility, we don't allow that. We make it difficult for commercial and industrial buildings to build solar and sell it back to the utility. If we did things like that, we could really ramp up the amount of solar that's produced in Glendale. Now, it's not just about solar, it is about batteries. We need to be incentivizing batteries, not so much the solar, but the batteries, because storing energy is going to be absolutely key to us achieving our goals of eliminating the use of fossil fuels. We are working on a program with a virtual power plant with a solar developer who will be focusing on multifamily buildings.
Thank you. The next question is directed first to Ms. Asatrian. In response to a state mandate, the Metropolitan Water District recently imposed water restrictions on dozens of Southern California cities, which included limiting the watering of lawns to once per week or reducing overall water usage by as much as 25%. Although the city of Glendale was not one of the cities affected by these restrictions, continuing drought conditions suggest that our city may be soon be called upon to do the same. What actions, if any, should the city of Glendale take to encourage or mandate greater water conservation? Ms. Asatrian, your 2-minute response, please.
The answer to this actually ties to pretty much everything else that comes out of City Hall, and that includes proper education and community outreach that reaches the diverse communities that make up Glendale. Currently, we have this one-size-fits-all communication system where anything that we're trying to do education on, there's a flyer that goes out, the city puts out some sort of messaging on their social media platforms and calls it community outreach. What I envision is a city that's proactive versus reactive on these matters, and it reaches the communities where they are. The perfect example of that is what we saw during COVID, when our small businesses and the most vulnerable in our communities were unaware of the programs that were available to them up to the point where funding became unavailable. And so what I'd like to see with any of those, including anything that deals with our drought issue and preserving water and capturing water is a thorough, targeted community outreach.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, your 1-minute response, please.
We came to the point that we know what we had before. All those green grasses was not for Southern California. We artificially created all that. So the grass should go. We have to have drought-tolerant vegetation in front of our lawn. So we have to get rid of because most of the water in every residential unit which we are using is to water the lawn in front of the house or back house. Doesn't matter for that purpose. So most of the water we're using for watering the vegetation, so we have to be careful what we are planting. Based on that, we may be able to conserve some water and help the government and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. You know, for single-family homes, over 50% of the water that's being used is used for irrigation, and that's really not necessary. Glendale actually did very well the last time we went through a water conservation effort, and we beat all of our neighboring cities in that. So I guess the word got out to those residents that were trying to conserve water. It's a combination of taking out the grass, putting in the succulents, and human nature being what it is, hitting people in the pocketbook for excessive water use will surely get them down in their water usage. Recycled water is expensive to bring out to certain neighborhoods, but we're continually trying to do that and let people use the recycled water rather than the potable water.
Thank you. Ms. Valencia Tavanyan, your 1-minute response, please.
Sure, thank you. A statement they come out and then about water restriction, and then I see that this city of Glendale is taking care in a very efficient way. I received many letters that communicate how we can with tips, we can be more efficient with water use. And also, I heard that car wash business, they have to change the system of the water as well. And like personally, in my hotel, we used to have a waterfall, and they shut down the waterfall just to save water and not to get into these problems later. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Ms. Quinones Gabrielian. California's short-lived Climate Pollutant Reduction Law, SB 1383, establishes methane reduction targets for California and sets goals for reducing the disposal of organic waste in landfills. One purpose of the bill is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, such as methane, a major factor in climate change. What steps should the City of Glendale take to incentivize residents to generate less food waste and organic materials overall? Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you very much. Not too long ago, we had a very nice, I think, pop-up tents so that, we could educate our community. So one of the things is to educate our community. Our public works people, our truck haulers were there, the Glendale Environmental Coalition and other environmental coalitions were there to educate folks about how to do this. And we have started here in Glendale to do our own composting and using our existing green trash trucks, or not trash bins, so that we can collect it there. So everyone has to do their fair share. That's one way to do it. But the most important, and I think biggest impact, will be how we create public policy for the reduction of things like plastic one-time use in our restaurants, et cetera, especially polystyrene products. And I believe the city is taking some steps in that direction by imposing those rules and public policies for the reduction in our own city facilities and showing by example, and then taking all the kinks out of that, writing good public policy, working with our small businesses and large businesses, and closing the loop. We have to probably find out what type of facilities the city has to fund so that we can go from cradle to grave in reducing the use of all of these one-time materials.
Thank you. Ms. Kwok, your 1-minute response, please.
This is one of the benefits of having lived in many different cities across the country, that in New York and in Boston, there were several nonprofit groups that worked with restaurants on how they could actually donate to the food they had left over at the end of every day, so that all of this food that might have gone into the trash was actually given to people who really needed them. And these programs became so successful that government stepped in and decided to pass laws, which made it much easier, for businesses like restaurants that constantly produce a lot of unused food at the end of each day, to make use of what they already have instead of disposing of it as waste. See, that's one way. This is what people call a win-win, that we help people who greatly need the food, and we also reduce the waste in our system. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brotman, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay, I love all these questions on the environment. As far as SB 1383 goes, so we have already, implemented a new trash collection system, and that will require that everyone separate their food waste and make sure that it gets transferred into composting facilities. So it's not really a matter of incentives, it's a matter of following the law. I've separately been leading an effort here to eliminate the use of single-use plastics and polystyrene across Glendale. And we'll be having an ordinance come forward to us fairly soon to do that. Now, that will mean everybody uses compostables, and we don't want compostables going into the landfill either because that creates methane. So another thing I've been working on is requiring dine-in restaurants to serve on reusables. The holy grail is to reuse things, not to just have this use once and throw away mentality in our lives.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan, your 1-minute response, please.
So in terms of trash hauling, we've seen a drastic change in the city, and it's moved towards privatization of that. Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, we've seen a drastic change in the city towards privatization of trash hauling, and that has been in response to SB 1383. The problem is that the city staff knew that this problem was coming, and they had years ago, and they had been trying to expand the city's facilities to actually accommodate for organics. That unfortunately was not planned for by council. Those plans were discontinued, and now we have a problem where the privatization of trash hauling has resulted in increases of costs by anywhere from 300 to 500%. Council claims that this is a mandate from the state, but that's not true. We would not be in this situation if council had actually expanded the facilities and the capacity to deal with these organics years ago.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Agajanian. In 2015, voters rejected Measure D, which would have amended the city charter and removed the requirement that city council members be elected at large rather than by districts. Proponents argued that electing council members at large effectively disenfranchised Latino voters and therefore violated the Voting Rights Act. Opponents claimed that creating districts would lead to more political division among council members who would tend to concern themselves with their particular district rather than the needs of the city as a whole. Where do you stand on this issue, and would you support bringing the issue before the voters once again? Mr. Agajanian, your 2-minute response, please.
Obviously, public can bring this issue back. But the point is, we are a small city anyway. We are almost 200,000. We have 200,000 population. And right now, a person, if he has a problem, they can call 5 council members. And we jump. They write an email, 5 of us, they answer the call. When we divide it, this little smaller city divided by 5, it means each section will be 40,000 people. 1 council member will represent them. You go back to city of Los Angeles, each council member represents 250,000 people, more than Glendale. Glendale is 200,000. 1 district of Los Angeles is 250,000. The population is 250,000. So what I think, what the system we have is working. Why to divide it in different districts? As you may see, school districts, that one of the districts, there is no competition in election. One person is, nobody is challenging them. Where here, as you may see, the candidates who are running for our position, 3 of us are council members, they're running, 8 people are running for the 3 seats. So it shows this works. And I think this is a good system. As I said, look at our emails. Everybody has opportunity to get to us and speak to us, and we jump as soon as we get one email. If it would be only me or one of the council members, they may not answer that quick. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you, Ms. Zern. There's so much I'd like to tell you about this. Unfortunately, this was raised in a closed session of the City Council in response to a threat of a lawsuit. So there's more that I'd like to tell you, but let me tell you what I do know, is that we have had a rich history of diversity on the Glendale City Council. We've had council members Frank Quintero, we had council members Gus Gomez, council member and Mayor Carl Raggio. We have a very inclusive Latino representation on this council. Further, have you ever seen what's going on in LA? You can't even go to another council member's district and hold a fundraiser without getting a visa, if you will, from that council member. It's mini fiefdoms, it balkanizes the region, and I will not have that in Glendale. If someone has a problem, there's 5 council members that the person can call, and usually 5 will answer and try to seek to resolve the issues.
Thank you. Ms. Valencia Tavanyan, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay, I am in favor of district. I like their disagreements, better ideas arise when it's disagreement. No, like now I can see that they are too much, there is no discussion, everybody vote for the same. A lot of people, they are calling, a lot of people are watching many times the meetings, and they are in a disagreement because they always goes in the way that it's not fair for the majority, period. And then, first of all, Mr. Quintero, he's not Latino, he's not Spanish, he's from Spain, he's European. And Gomez was the only one who could he mention it as a Latino council member long time ago. I could say 2005 or 2010, no more than that. So that's why we are here. We want diversity, we want representation, and we want the districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Asatrian, your 1-minute response, please.
I do believe we need districts. What I'd like to see is a hybrid where you have 2 at-large council members and then the rest be divided up to districts, whether it's 5 or 7. I think we are operating like we're a town of 50,000 people, which is what Glendale used to be, and we are now a regional connector city, and I'd love for us to build a government structure and model that reflects that.
Thank you. The next question is directed first to Ms. Kwok. In 2017, for the 12th year in a row, Allstate Insurance placed Glendale near the bottom of its list of U.S. cities with the safest drivers, finding that Glendale residents were 83% more likely than the national average to get into a collision. What additional steps should the city of Glendale be taking to make our streets safer for drivers and pedestrians alike? Ms. Kwok, your 2-minute response, please.
First of all, I should state that I do not drive. I'm 48 years old, and I have never owned a car. I'm a pedestrian. I walked all around the city for years, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that it can be very dangerous as a pedestrian, and you see all the bad driving, all the bad turns, the vast majority of which are never caught. So this is why I believe that we need to work on methods of prevention, structural solutions, like curb extensions, and, for example, protected left turn lanes, that I feel much safer crossing those areas. That we're never going to be able to catch everyone who breaks the rules, but we can make it structurally impossible for them to do so in the first place. Now, the city did pass a pedestrian plan last year. There are many beautiful solutions in that plan, which were very carefully and beautifully laid out, and we simply need to implement them. And again, as a pedestrian, since I see this firsthand, for example, I live right in between Brand and Central, that when we have zebra-marked crosswalks on Brand with flashing lights, that cars are far more likely to cooperate with it than, for example, along Central where there are none. And I can definitely bring a pedestrian's perspective on how I deal with this every day and make it a priority to make sure that these these programs are implemented correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brotman, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay, well, I would say this is a problem that's been with us for a long time. There's no easy fix. Anybody that's telling you there is selling you snake oil. So it's a complicated problem. Now, we have passed a pedestrian plan. It's an excellent plan. There are a lot of treatments that are called out there. And as Ms. Kwok just said, the challenge now is we have to fund that. And this council has been putting money behind the pedestrian plan. And I've spoken out every time there's any kind of road resurfacing to say, let's use this opportunity to do a redesign on the road so that we can slow traffic. So a lot of it is about engineering and road design. Enforcement also has to play an important role. And we've been working on council lately to shift police resources into increased enforcement and also look at options where we could outsource some less critical functions so that we can free up more officers to spend time patrolling the city and tracking down the really egregious violators.
Mr. Henry, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I believe that this problem is very solvable. To say that it is simple is not, it would not be accurate, but to say that it's not solvable would also not be accurate. We do need better engineering that should be left up. The decision making in that process should be consulted with the neighborhoods, the communities, the HOAs. Certain communities want better enforcement and they'd like to go in that direction. Others would like speed bumps and rumble strips. What I will say is that the city should, as the city develops and grows, traffic is going to intensify. We have not had a comprehensive traffic study in this city in over 40 years. We cannot engineer the city and traffic to slow things down, as council has recently stated. That will cause more problems and decrease the quality of life here in Glendale that I will not support.
Thank you. Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. This is truly a very important issue for Glendale. And what is effective are the basics: education, enforcement, and engineering. So in education, we should probably bring back education, driver's ed, and also it starts with the parents. Also making sure that they are responsible and showing it by example. Enforcement, I do agree on redeploying a couple of our traffic officers, but really the biggest part is engineering safe street designs and going after. I agree that we need to have a comprehensive traffic study. I was just meeting with one of our homeowners associations, and the solution to their problem, to their neighborhood, was not correct. They're trying to impose solutions to neighborhoods that don't fit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question will be directed first to Mr. Najarian. With a diversity score of 94 out of 100, Glendale is much more diverse than other United States cities. Do you believe that the diversity of our city workforce satisfactorily reflects the demographics of the community? And if not, what steps should the city be taking to increase the diversity among its employees? Mr. Najarian, your 2-minute response, please.
And is it appropriate to complement the nature of those questions that we're getting today? Yes, that is a very good question. The city strives to create a diverse workforce, to reflect the diversity in our communities. We've come a long way. If you go back 20 years, our city workforce was not very diverse. It was pretty much a white man's club. But as you can tell, looking at the current makeup, we've come a long way. We have an Armenian city manager. We have a Latino city attorney. I was proud to hire our first African-American fire chief, Chief Scoggins. There is room for improvement. Don't get me wrong about that. I would like to see greater diversity in the fire department throughout the ranks, both ethnic diversity and gender diversity. In other words, more women in the fire department. I would like to see additional Armenians in the fire department. Armenians are about 40% of the community. They're not totally represented in that manner in fire. Police isn't so bad. In the rank and file workers in the city of Glendale, I think you've got a rich diversity of both women and ethnic diversities as well as racial diversities. Council takes it very seriously when we look for department heads, which is a position that we have more influence on. Otherwise, it's going through the civil service system where technically it's racially blind and ethnically blind and gender blind. But when we look for our top leaders in the city government, we try very hard to have a great diversity. We had a female city manager just before our current city manager. So I think we've done a very good job for the issues that the city council can affect directly.
Thank you. Ms. Valencia Tavanyan, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, I'd like it. It's an extraordinary question because we see the balanced representation even in the workforce, wherever you go, in the city, police officers, and also at the court, at the judicial. We need to have more representation, gender, and also from different backgrounds, because that is the beauty of this country, that receive everybody for any other country is welcoming, and we need to see that diversity everywhere we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Asatrian, your 1-minute response, please.
This is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart and something I've worked on since about 2006, particularly with the city of Glendale, to ensure that we change our recruitment policies and hiring policies as well as our promotional policies. While we've made a lot of headway, I don't see a single woman department head in the city, and I find issue with that. And it's not because there aren't qualified women. I think we have to do a better job at recruitment, which is something that we even looked at when we were talking about the police department about 2006, 2007. At that time, they were claiming that the Armenian American community wasn't qualified and involved, and yet the minute that policy changes came about, we had all those wonderful qualified police officers that joined the force. And so we have an opportunity to chart a new course, and I would love for us to do an assessment on not just the department heads, but on the promotion of women in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, your 1-minute response, please.
I have to say that basically, I think we have in good shape as far as ethnic and gender diversity, because I remember in 1999 I was interviewing at the time Chief Haynes, the chief of fire department. And I asked him, there is nobody in 1999, there is no Armenian on the force. And he promised me that he's working on it. At a later time, little by little, has been changed. In every department, city departments, now we see diversity, we also see the gender, but in fire department is where we still have to work because there are very few Armenians in that force. And the women, of course, women and fire department, we have to consider the situation, but however, it needs improvement.
The next question is directed first to Mr. Brotman. If elected, or in your case, re-elected, you will serve on the Glendale City Council as the state and county COVID-19 eviction protections and rent relief programs are winding down. Many tenant advocates warn of a coming tsunami of evictions, as rent relief programs were often too little and too long delayed, while large balances of past due rent have strained landlords in an economy that is more and more expensive. What do you think the city can or should do, if anything, to address the coming challenges to housing people in Glendale? Mr. Brotman, your 2-minute response, please.
It's a tough question. So when COVID hit, we had a big challenge which was many, many renters who lost their jobs, couldn't work, for no fault of their own, couldn't pay their rent. And we didn't want them out on the street. We didn't want them out on the street for public health reasons. We didn't want them out on the street for equity reasons. So we put in protections that would basically prevent them from getting evicted. Now, that threw the problem onto landlords, and many of those landlords could handle it, but many of them couldn't. And there was a deep unfairness about that. The only real solution would have been one that involved some kind of agency standing in between tenants and landlords and kind of bridging that financial challenge. It took a long time, and I was proud to have worked with our state senator to introduce a bill into the legislature which would have set up like an intermediary financial arrangement. It didn't make it, but the state then put in its own protections and its own support packages. So now the question is, how do we get that money into the hands of tenants? Because a lot of people have not been able to access it. The system has not worked. And we need to help tenants specifically with information, with hand-holding, to be able to access those funds so that they can stay housed. Because the last thing we want is people to be forced onto the street and into homelessness.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a complicated issue. However, COVID has drastically changed since the first days of the pandemic, or at least our understanding of it and the disease itself. We are seeing far fewer severe cases. People are free to get vaccinated. There are therapeutics available. The economy, though, and the stagnation that we're seeing, inflation that we're seeing right now, could potentially be more hazardous to those very same people if they are not encouraged to shift from reliance on government to a self-reliance. And now we need to get people working again. We need to get people being able to earn their keep. This is absolutely necessary in a free capitalistic society, and we need to do that on a local level. That's not to say we want to see mass evictions, certainly not. But at this point in the pandemic, we need to get people working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. A very difficult situation, and I've been waiting for the other shoe to drop because everything, the stock market, it's finally balancing itself out, correcting itself. But what I believe we have to do is a two-prong approach. First, we need to work with all arms of the government to find any help we can for the renters as we come out of these moratoriums. Second, work with the landlords and make sure that perhaps they take a percentage, just like they were supposed to before they got out of the moratorium. And then thirdly, focus on the economy and make sure that we are creating jobs so that they have the jobs in order to pay the rent. We can do that here by helping our small business, supporting.
Thank you. Ms. Kwok, your 1-minute response, please.
I deal with this issue every day. As a member of the Glendale Tenants Union for 5 years, I know from experience that our housing laws are a mishmash of federal, state, and local laws. We've seen this during the pandemic when these various government entities were all passing their own laws, which didn't necessarily agree with laws coming from other jurisdictions. Okay, just last night I got a call from a tenant who had applied for the Housing is Key program, and the funds had been paid, but the rules are so complex that she had a very specific legal question. She had already contacted the Housing is Key people, and they gave her the runaround. They told her to contact a private lawyer, which most tenants are unable to do. This is why I would very much like to see a right to counsel law passed, because access to lawyers, to affordable lawyers, would actually help both tenants and landlords, because both tenants and landlords are dealing with the same issue, that if we provide clear answers, it will help both parties. And also, I would like to add that as slow as the funding is for the state program, things actually could be worse.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Ms. Valencia Tavanyan. As we approach the end of the COVID pandemic, it's becoming apparent that some changes in the economy may be permanent, such as reductions in revenue from office occupancy taxes, fewer non-resident workers patronizing local shops and restaurants, etc. How should council members address these and other potentially long-term trends? Ms. Valencia Tavanyan, your 2-minute response, please.
Excuse me. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know, Ms. Tavanyan.
Okay, my pleasure. As it was long, as we approach the end of the COVID pandemic, it's becoming apparent that some changes in the economy will be permanent, such as reductions in revenue from office occupancy taxes, fewer non-resident workers patronizing local shops and restaurants, etc. How should council members address these and other potentially long-term trends?
Yes, as COVID start to, it's not end. It's not gonna end. Trust me. It's coming the fourth vaccine already in many countries. Many countries are closing their frontiers as well too. In my work, hotel workers, they start calling sick. They got COVID again, and not necessarily because they are traveling. It's within the same events that we work in different revenue like Staple, Dodgers games, and hotels. This reduction in the offices occupancy taxes, it need to be done and negotiated with the companies and negotiated with workers and negotiated with the unions. I was listening a news the other day about that. They're trying to not to hire new people, which one is kind of like closing the gap. But at the same time, they trying to give another workers extra duties. But this is a time to sacrifice. That's what I'm calling people. Sacrifice. You cannot say, oh, this is not my job, and because you don't pay me for this, I'm not going to touch, I'm not going to do it. Please look inside yourself and find that humankind that we are different for the rest of the beings, and exercise this in regardless to your love for your city, for your workplace, for your city, for your community, for your country. We need to make a drastic change as a person. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Satrian, your 1-minute response, please.
I believe you invite new businesses to the city when you're an inviting city. One of my top priorities actually on this campaign, and has been something I've been dealing with for the last 20 years, is the fact that I don't believe that we have an economic development department. I like to call it the Code of Compliance Office, because if small businesses hear from the city for the first time, if they do, then it's because there's a code compliance issue. What I'm envisioning is an economic development department that actually proactively assists our small businesses and makes it easy for them to do business in this city. I think we would be able to alleviate a lot of the issues that we're seeing, particularly coming out of COVID, and I look forward to working with the different staff and our small businesses on that issue.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, your 1-minute response, please.
The businesses, some of the businesses, of course, they lost or they are not working or they closed the business. But what we have done for small businesses, that we came up with the $5,000 incentive or help that we gave to the business owners to survive and to continue. Some of the businesses, they got PPP loans, and it was easy for them to continue. But the small businesses with no employees, the PPP loans would not accept to help them. So that's why we came up with the idea of giving $5,000 to small businesses. But I think slowly businesses are coming back. Some of the office workers are staying home or continuing doing the business from home, which I think those offices probably will be changed to residential units. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I caught the trick question. It's a trick question because we do not have an office occupancy tax in the city of Glendale, nor do we have a business tax in the city of Glendale. So the best thing that the city council has done is to do nothing and not impose those sort of taxes. That's not to say that we're going to have effects from the COVID. We certainly were very concerned, and during the COVID, our revenues did dip. But what we've seen as we've gone through our budget cycle in the last few weeks is that our sales tax are up, our property taxes are up. Folks that are not coming to town to work, their spending power is being replaced by those that are working from home in Glendale. And they're the ones coming to those shops and restaurants that were otherwise patronized by folks in the office buildings. It's a tough question. We have monitoring this very carefully, but I think we're going to get through this. We're doing a great job on our budget, and we'll maintain a balanced budget.
Thank you. The next question is directed to all the candidates, but in reverse order. We've touched upon a number of important issues in tonight's forum. What important question did we leave out? Ms. Valencia Tavanyan, your 1-minute response, please.
Okay, the question that I will leave out, and it's very important right now that you were talking about very soon massive evictions, is we have this program that they help the tenants to get the money in order for the landlords to get their monthly payment. But the landlord refuse. Most of them, they refuse to participate in the program, and we want to know why. One of the ladies who called Glendale Tenant Union, she expressed that landlords say that because if he receives or he has something to do with the state, he is not allowed to raise the rent for 2 years or more. I want to know if that is true or it is not, because sometimes we need to sacrifice that part in the landlords in order for them to accept. But at the same time, you cannot raise rent when we are having this kind of crisis. Economic situation is really bad. And also, I want to add something to the hotel. The hotel industry...
Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Najarian, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, thank you. I'm going to name 2 issues. One is public safety. I think it's important that we all come out on the record for supporting our police department. Public safety is what makes Glendale such a great place to live, because we are now and have been for the past 20 years one of the safest cities in all of California, and I'm very proud to have been a part of that. The second is transit. I think the future of our communities involves transit, and I have worked hard as a board member of LA Metro and chairman of MetroLink to bring transit to our community so we can get people out of their cars, and it goes to sustainability, to get them out of their cars and onto public transit so they don't have to clog our freeways and pollute our airways. Most of our air pollution is caused by mobile sources, that's trucks, cars, and buses. Those are 2 things that I wish we had more time as a group to discuss. Thank you.
Mr. Agajanian, your 1-minute response, please.
I think housing is a very important issue that we are facing always. That's why in 2019 I came up with the idea that we have to limit the raising the rent for our population, for our people who reside in Glendale, limited to 7%. And if landlords wants to raise it more than that, they're allowed to do it, but they have to pay the renter to go. So we have to also, during the period of in 2019, we came up with the idea that to pay $300 to renters to be able to pay to the landlord, which was a very important thing. And for the Section 8 to be accepted by the landlords, we came up with incentives to help the landlords to accept. We are giving them landlords incentives to accept Section 8 housing vouchers.
Thank you. Mrs. Satrian, your 1-minute response, please.
I would have loved to have been asked what our vision is for our city 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. I think we keep making decisions that are based on the issues that we have facing in front of us today without looking outward. And the answer to that would be to build a greener Glendale, to actually invest money in parks and open spaces below the 134 freeway, to make our streets walkable, to ensure that we're investing in sustainability and keeping Glendale the safe city that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brotman, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, there's so many things here. Equity between North and South Glendale, between homeowners and renters, public safety, housing affordability, homelessness, all these are very important issues. I just want to touch on one more, which is our pension obligations and our long-term financial health. We're not going to be able to do any of the things that we want to do if we can't balance our budgets. Our pension obligations are growing as a percentage of our general fund and will be for the next 8 to 10 years. Recently, Council organized a Blue Ribbon Commission to study the pension overhang issue. I'm looking forward to studying the report that's just come out from them. But essentially, I think the bottom line is we need people on council who can really understand these financial issues and make the smart decisions that we're going to need to make in the next few years so that we get a handle on this problem.
Thank you. Ms. Kwok, your 1-minute response, please.
This is the 5th candidate forum, and I have not heard a single question about racism. In September 2020, the City Council passed the Sun Downtown Resolution, which was a remarkable step toward recognizing historical racism in Glendale. However, significant that step was, it was simply a symbolic statement. And I would like to see the city pass policies that address these historical inequities, because they will continue to persist unless we actively correct them. I will give you 2 metrics. These are the national numbers. I don't have the local numbers for Glendale. The 75% of white people in this country are homeowners, whereas only about 44% of black households own their own houses. Another metric is that black women earn 61 cents on the dollar for every white man. Now, all the policies that this city passes needs to consider how are we going to address those inequities. And I haven't seen any move toward that goal. One step would be toward hiring a diversity, inclusion, and equity officer for the city. Thank you.
Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, thank you. Your questions have been very good, very eloquent, and all of these additional items are very important to the city of Glendale, and I agree with all of them. What came to mind is the balance that the balance we need to approach and find a solution for between the regional housing mandate of 13,000 new units over the next 8 years and protecting and enhancing the quality of life in our single-family neighborhoods as we respond to legislation like SB 9. And I believe that by developing developing next to public transit, we kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and we encourage people to get out of their cars, stop polluting, and hopefully walk to work or use public transit.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, State Senate Bills 9 and 10 are going to drastically change the way our neighborhoods and our city looks. With State Senate Bill 9, the city must accept up to 4 units, should a developer choose to develop those, on a single-family residential parcel. Within a half mile of a bus stop, as Metro is expanding its bus reach, no off-street parking will be required. We are going to see drastic increases in parking on the street and increases to traffic. Now, talking about public safety, you're going to see massive increases in emergency response times. So as the city is forced to develop, unfortunately, by the state, overdevelop in the residential neighborhoods, you're going to see people suffer as emergency response times increase. And I will fight that on council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The candidates will now have 2 minutes each for their closing statements. Mr. Jordan, your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you for having us tonight. Really appreciate your excellent questions tonight. My name is Jordan Henry. I'm running for city council because community safety, transparency, public parks, and feasible sustainability are certainly my top priorities as the city grows and develops. I have a master's in landscape architecture from Cal Poly Pomona. I'm a city employee for Los Angeles City Public Works. I understand how government works on a day-to-day basis, local government works, and I can communicate that very well with city staff, management, and the public since I do that for my day job. I've lived in Glendale for just over a year. I moved here from Highland Park, where I lived with my family for 6. My wife and I were always shopping and eating in Glendale, and this by far is the best city in the LA area to raise a family, which is why I live here. I believe that safe streets and neighborhoods are the cornerstone to maintaining our high quality of life that we love in Glendale. And as one of the safest cities of our size in the nation, the Glendale Police, they have my respect, and I will support them just as they support and protect all of us. The Police Association, I'm proud to say that I'm the only non-incumbent to have received the police endorsement. I've also received the endorsement from the Glendale City Employee Association, again, because I largely understand their perspective on city services. Going back to SB 9 and 10, we must protect the single-family residential neighborhoods that we have in Glendale. That's the reason why a lot of people do live here, and I understand there are a lot of tenants who do live in Glendale. However, the SB 9 and 10 will drastically change the way our city functions. Residential zoning should be strictly a local issue, and there are 4 cities, Redondo Beach, Carson, Whittier, Torrance, that are all joining to sue the state right now, and I will help join that too. Thank you so much.
Ms. Quinones Gabrielian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, League of Women Voters, for this. I am Anita Quinones Gabrielian, and I want to represent you on the Glendale City Council. I'm an immigrant from Nicaragua who married an immigrant from Armenia. After living the immigrant struggle, I'm living the American dream now, and I have served community and others, community organizations and others, so that others can do the same. My late husband and I chose Glendale as our home, where we raised 3 accomplished daughters. Among the most important things I want for our residents is a safe place to call home, parks in our neighborhoods, safe streets, a vibrant economy with shops, arts, and entertainment, and clean air and water. I'm blessed with a great education, a long and distinguished career with AT&T. Now, as a small business owner, I appreciate the struggles of small businesses. I have been actively volunteering in our community for the last 30 years. A highlight was serving on the Glendale Community College Board of Trustees 3 times as president over the 15 years I served. I will fight to protect and enhance the quality of life of our residents, monitoring and firmly responding to legislation like SB 9. To increase more affordable housing, I will champion balanced and adaptive development. I will fully fund police and fire, implement the pedestrian safety plan, and work to increase traffic safety. I will work to achieve 100% response and renewable energy sources by 2035. Listen and respond to the concerns of Glendalians. Vote for Anita Quinones Gabrielian. I'm number 2 on the ballot. On City Council, I will be working for all of Glendale.
Thank you. Ms. Kwok, your 2-minute closing statement, please.
You know, politicians love to talk about the little people until we show up at City Hall and start speaking up for ourselves. And they find that the things we have to say are very unlike the things we thought we were going to say. Well, I'm one of the little people, and this is what I have to say. That I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in South Glendale, where I run a small business and tutor students. During the pandemic, we've seen how tenant-landlord issues affect everyone in the city. Here in Glendale, where 67% of residents are renters. Last year, I worked with community groups and with the City Council to create the new Tenant-Landlord Committee so that we can come together to discuss issues and find common sense solutions. I have big dreams for our city and specific plans on how to get there. One is not just more affordable housing, but a new model of affordable housing, and the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, or TOPA, to give renters a way to buy the building they live in. Right to counsel and anti-harassment laws to guarantee fair and safe housing. Public banking to save money for the city and to serve our people. council districts so that all areas of the city, like South Glendale, can be fairly represented in every election, an ethics commission to keep our politicians honest, and healthy trees and clean water for everyone that's free of microplastics and PFAS. At a time when it's very easy for people to live in small bubbles where everyone around them thinks the same way, I encourage different voices to talk to each other to work for positive change. Because if we're going to leave a better world for our kids than the one we inherited, there are many things that we dearly need to change, and the sooner the better. A vote for me is a vote for change. Join us at quackforchange.com. And I should add that I also live with 2 very sweet and smart cats, and they also approve this message. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brotman, your closing statement, please.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for setting this up. We've been through 5 candidate forums, and I have to say it's very frustrating when you have 1 or 2 minutes to answer extremely complex questions. So one thing you get with me is I am a policy wonk. I have a degree in international economics from Johns Hopkins, and I started my career at the Federal Reserve of New York, really getting into economic issues. So I love to dig into the issues. I love to ask questions. I'm the only council member that staff briefs individually because my colleagues got sick of me asking so many questions. I like to do I like to do research. I seek out experts in the community and get diverse opinions. So if you want to know more about my views on the issues that we discussed today, please email me. I always respond, and I respond promptly and substantively. And I'm known for saying it like it is. I don't put on the political sheen. Or if you prefer, go to my website, danbrotman4glendale.com. I go into a lot of issues on things like the environment, housing, homelessness, development, historic preservation, traffic safety, our fiscal situation, arts and culture, quality of life, and more. I'm a problem solver. I'm not into simplistic answers or empty ideological debates. I'm into solutions, practical solutions that move us incrementally in the right direction. This is why I've been endorsed by State Senator Anthony Portantino, Assemblymember Laura Friedman, ex-Mayor Frank Quintero, our current Mayor Artie Kasakian. I also have a very long list of community leaders supporting my campaign. One thing about police and fire unions and other city unions, I could have gotten those endorsements had I sought them. I actively decided that I would not go for those because I believe it's a conflict of interest. We are at the table negotiating salary contracts with our police and fire and other unions. To take their endorsement and then to be sitting and negotiating salary, I think is inappropriate.
Thank you. Ms. Satrian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for organizing this and to everyone that's watching at home. My name is Elena Satrian. I've called Glendale my home since I was 10. I'm running because, like all of you, I love Glendale, and I know that I can bring the courageous yet empathetic leadership that I believe our residents and small businesses deserve. While there's a lot that's great, I believe we need a culture change at City Hall. I want our City Hall to be proactive versus reactive, where we implement policies based on a vision of what we want our city to look like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, while also addressing the issues impacting all of us today. If the pandemic taught us anything, it is how this checkbox, one-size-fits-all communication our government agencies use leaves out those who don't know how to navigate the system. If we want to build a better Glendale, we need to actually invest in green space, affordable housing, sustainability, the arts, and make our streets walkable and safe. For the last 2 decades, I've taken immense pride in serving as the bridge and helping our residents and small businesses cut through the bureaucratic red tape at City Hall, while expanding green spaces and access to programs as your Parks and Recreations Commission chair. For me, there's no us versus them, and our City Hall is the house of the people. I will bring to the council the determined spirit of a community organizer, my background in policy and public affairs, and my proven track record of helping everyday people succeed. This can also be one of many firsts for Glendale. If I'm elected, I would be the first immigrant woman, at age 39, the youngest woman, the first Armenian American woman, and only the 5th woman in the history of our jewel city to serve on the council. Join me at electellen.com. Together, we'll make Glendale a model city to live, work, and play in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Agajanian, your closing statement, please.
I want to answer about solar panels has been asked. I used to live in Northwest, and I put solar panels in 2009 on my house to help the GWP. And I moved to Verdugo Woodland 6 years ago today, and the very first thing I did to put solar panel on my house and the Tesla battery, so to, again, help the GWP. Thank you, League of Women Voters. My name is Rajagi Jainian. I'm the current council member and former mayor of Glendale. I'm the vice chair of Eco-Rapid Transit and the treasurer of Burbank Glendale Airport Authority. I have been an advocate of government transparency, accountability, and responsibility in government, and quality of life in your jewel city. I will continue to do so once re-elected as council member. I have been a California certified professional engineer for 40 years and served as project engineer at the San Diego Naval Hospital. I'm president of 2 US TV channels, and everybody has seen my personal phone numbers are on both channels, so everybody can reach me. The TVs are on Charter Spectrum and computer and other means, have hosted a nightly news program for 22 years reporting on US political, social, and economic issues. Most importantly, I am the father of 2 children with my wife, Dina. I kept my doors open during the pandemic, even as City Hall was closed. I was the only council member to keep an open office during that time. I wanted to ensure the public still had access
Thank you.
to me.
Thank you. Mr. Najarian, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, League of Women Voters and fellow candidates. Glendale is a premier city. It is one of the best cities in all of California, and I hope you agree with me. And I've been at the forefront in making Glendale and keeping it a premier city for years. I'm Councilmember Ara Najarian, and I'm running for re-election to the Glendale City Council. I believe that no other candidate has the experience, know-how, and commitment to the city that I have. I opened my law office on Brand Boulevard in 1988. I worked for our Glendale congressman. I've worked in the Glendale District Attorney's Office. I've served as a judge pro tem in the Glendale Courthouse. I was elected to the Glendale Community College Board of Trustees, and I was elected to the City Council, and I've served 4 terms as your mayor. I'm chairman of MetroLink, the Southern California Regional Rail Authority, and I will be LA Metro Chair in July. My top priority is public safety and keeping you and your families safe. That's why I'm the only candidate endorsed by the Glendale police officers, the Glendale firefighters, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff deputies. As a Metro Board member and chairman, I'm bringing a high-quality electric-powered transit line to Glendale that will connect us with the entire Metro transit system. It's like the red cars we used to have, but only better. I promise to continue to keep homelessness under control. I love the city, and I will never let it turn into Los Angeles. That's why in this election, you need someone with the experience and the know-how to be on council. Please vote for me, Ara Najarian.
Thank you. Ms. Valencia Tavanyan, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for this opportunity and this forum for wonderful questions. My name is Isabel Valencia Tevanian, and I want to share with you a personal experience. When I was driving just this last month in Glendale, I went to the MetroLink station in Gardena, and I see a long line people waiting for them to collect food. To provide for them food, they need to go and make a long lines during the sunny day, hot day, in Gardena, and lately I saw in Broadway. It makes me remember my time when in my country, we have the same problems. For every single thing that we want to get from the market, we need to make a line. And suddenly we were living at the time, communists and socialists. I don't want to see that happen in this country, but I see signs, and we need to pay attention. I don't want to it happened in this country, what just happened in Spain and just happened in Germany just lately. People, they took over the hotels and they give it to the people that they are homeless. Why? Because the government doesn't take ownership and the responsibilities and bring solutions to these issues for the citizens. That's why they have to do drastic things that is not benefit for the community, for the country itself. So I want not to see that. That time when this does happen, I was 22 years old. I finished college. I have 2 kids, and I worked for a very important company back then. I was expertise in import and export. So please, I represent people that we come from other countries, but we work as a blue-collar workers in this country. But we know what we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our City Council Candidate Forum. We're grateful to the staff of Glendale TV and Brian Halloran for their valuable support in making this event possible. We'd like to thank the candidates for participating in this forum. A vital part of our democratic process is the willingness of individuals to offer their services to represent our community. And we thank all of the candidates for running in this election. The League of Women Voters of Glendale, Burbank, and Greater Los Angeles would also like to thank both our audience in attendance and those of you at home. Please be sure to vote at a voter center or mail in or drop your ballot off so it is postmarked or received by June 7th. Thank you and good night.